Hello and welcome to this episode of the Cadaver Lab. I'm your host, Mike Cadaver, and I'm excited to talk about today's movie. Not only is it the spooky season right now, and this is definitely a Halloween movie, but it's a throwback that hits that like romanticized version of that 80s that we all love, whether it's true or not. Today we'll be talking about the WNUF Halloween Special, and if it hasn't already, it will become a Halloween time staple for your watch list. Can you see it right there? That's it right there. It's a TerrorVision version of it. But before we start talking about that, do me a favor, guys. Make sure to subscribe, like, and for heck's sake, comment with your thoughts on the show, will you? Let's get into it. The WNUF Special was released in 2013 and was directed by a guy named Chris LaMartina. It has 14 directing and 17 writing credits, and I've seen a couple of his other movies, including Call Girl of Cthulhu, and Out There Halloween Megatape, which is a 2022 sequel to this movie, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. This movie stars Paul Fahrenkampf as Frank Stewart, Nicolette Lefay as Veronica Stanzi, Leanna Chamish as Deborah Merritt, Richard Cutting as Gavin Gordon, Robert Long II as Father Joseph Matheson, among others. There are 3 credited writers on this, the director Chris LaMartina, Jimmy George, and Jamie Nash. So before I get into the plot of the movie, I want to talk a bit about how this movie is presented. It's made to look like someone around Halloween in 1987 recorded a local news channel's Halloween special, complete with local commercials. It's super lo-fi. The film actually starts out with a few faux commercials, but we'll get into depth on those later. Then we're met with the WNUF news crew delivering the late news. Some of the stories include a Christian group's protest against Halloween, which is pretty funny, some local crime stuff, and even the dentist buyback Halloween candy program that was on the news, and it was a commercial as well. It's Halloween and the news group, so they're all dressed up in pretty sweet kitschy costumes going back and forth doing their job. Every once in a while, they'll cut to a man named Frank Stewart, who's preparing to do a live exploration in a supposed haunted house. He's got some locals there that he's interviewing before the show goes live, and he's waiting to go live right after the newscast is over. The director filmed and presented this in a way that the viewer might have had questions about whether or not this is a real recording off the TV from 1987, because, I mean, it's kitschy, and we'll get into all that stuff later. He was hoping that they would think it was real, at least for a little while. Anyways, they did some fun stuff in the marketing and distribution of this film that goes along with that as well, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. It was mainly filmed with an SVHS camera, and according to Chris LaMartina on the TerrorVision Blu-ray commentary, there were a few scenes filmed with mini DV. Not only that, but during the director's commentary, LaMartina mentioned how they quote-unquote aged the VHS tape. And if you're an old guy like me, you'll remember tape dubbing and trading. We used to tape stuff off the TV from the kids who had cable, or some of them figured out how to dub rental tapes. One of my friends would get a tape and then dub me a copy of it. Well, there was a distinct quality difference between this copy and my copy that he made for me. It was a generation higher. So you know what, though? We loved it, you spoiled jerk. You guys have 4Ks and Blu-rays. Up yours, man. We didn't complain that we didn't have a fancy, nice HD disc. We couldn't see half the details of the movie, and we liked it that way, okay? Well, apparently the filmmakers ran it through the system 3 times to degrade the look. It was originally filmed on the SVHS video camera in 4:3 aspect ratio. One cool thing is that an extra on the Blu-ray, there was a side-to-side comparison of the original VHS quality and the 3rd generation quality. So it was really cool. You could totally see a difference, but that just made it look more real. It like I said, how it brought up the romanticized 80s. It totally did that, because that's how all our movies we used to watch were. Well, to make this seem authentic, the production team put together some faux local commercials. Earlier on, while the nightly news was still going on in the movie, there were some commercials for like political candidates. I mean, it takes place in October, and we're always inundated with those. They're so irritating. But a dentist who was buying back the kids' Halloween candy, like I mentioned, lots of commercials for animal services, etc., local carpet warehouses, all sorts of pretty bad, but not inaccurate for the time, local commercials. Airlines, tampons, all sorts of local groups advertising, such as Parents Against Partying, etc. Later on, though, there were commercials for strip clubs, bars and grills, heavy metal Time Life tapes, party lines, and all that stuff, which, by the way, My favorite one of all of them was the sexy 900 number commercial that came up. Again, if you're an old guy like me, you remember that after 9 p.m. and you're up watching, whether it's the local channels or USA Up All Night or a similar show like that, we were inundated with those sexy ladies doing their favorite sultry voices to make us spend our parents $4.95 for the first minute and $2 each additional minute. Man, I was so young, I had no idea what would even go on during these calls. I never called, so I guess I still don't really know what goes on when you called it, but I think I can guess now. All these commercials were put together in a few different ways. First of all, the production put together a bunch of different people to work on writing, directing, producing the individual commercials. If you go to Wiki or IMDb, you can actually get the details on who worked on what. I think my favorite commercials were the faux shows that they were advertising, like crazy old kung fu or sci-fi horror stuff. They made it look so great. I mean, really bad, retro, cheesy, but man, it just, like I said, it just hit that nostalgia button, whether that's really how it was or not. But anyways, they also used a ton of stock footage to put these commercials together. And yeah, man, the thing is, and I got this from the commentary as well, that as they were putting all of these commercials together and the graphics for the newscast, the production team researched fonts, graphic styles, clothing choices, etc., so that they could keep everything that they could possibly do era appropriate. They even used some real footage from that time, that other filmmakers had laying around and put that into the whole thing, right? Last thing about the commercials, I promise, okay? But there were a bunch of Easter eggs that they put into those commercials. I won't spoil it, but it added to the fun of the whole thing. Anyhow, after the news was over, they turned it over to Frank Stewart, a reporter for WNUF, and his live expose about the supposedly haunted Weber house. Frank seems like your typical wannabe big fish in a small pond type. He isn't like a jerk per se, but maybe he is, but you could definitely tell that he thought very highly of himself. And he brought some experts with him to really get to the bottom of this haunting. He brings in an exorcist priest and an Ed and Lorraine Warren type couple who are supposedly paranormal experts. They're totally rip off Ed and Lorraine, and it's great. We see a reenactment of what supposedly happened, kind of like an Amityville situation. The Weber boy got his hands on a Ouija board. Supposedly, my daughter always corrects me on that. It's a Ouija board, Dad. It's not Ouija, but I'll tell you what. It was a Ouija back in the 80s, and this movie's about the 80s, so there you go. Anyways, he supposedly got possessed by a demon, and he murders his parents. By the way, this reenactment was one of my favorite parts. It was bad. Like local television bad. From the Photoshop ghostly images in the windows to the terrible looking actors involved in the reenactment, it had me cracking up. Like, I don't know if I'm making this up, but I swear that back in the day, we had stuff like this that was just bad. But these filmmakers did an amazing job putting little vague memories back in my head. And it's like I could remember where I was while I was watching movies like this, right? It's like sitting in my parents' bedroom on the 12-inch, tube TV. And that my dad bought from a hotel, and it's just good memories. Anyway, the rest of the movie, apart from some of the local reporters having some fun with chainsaws, etc., was the investigation. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil any of the results of the investigation, but it does actually get pretty dang interesting, and dare I say, even a little creepy and shocking there at the end. I think that the reason for that is I've been conditioned, as I'm watching it, that this is a local news show, and obviously I know it's not real and this is reenacted, but it still kind of has that look and feel. So when all the stuff started hitting the fan at the end, it got a little gnarly. I was like, oh dang, I was not expecting that. And also the mood changed real quick on that, and I love that. To be honest with you, this is more or less a found footage movie. Obviously, it's not in the style of Blair Witch because it's a recording of a live produced show as opposed to finding a bunch of random tapes and piecing them together. But, and Lamartine even mentioned this, but this format really answers some of the questions that regular found footage films bring up. For instance, during a regular found footage film, the subject of why they keep filming and they won't stop is always brought up. Well, in this, they don't stop filming because it's a live broadcast, and that question is answered. They do some fun stuff with cutting to commercials. When something crazy happens, everyone looks at the TV shocked, and they cut away. I guess it just makes some of these questionable found footage tropes, takes some of these questionable found footage tropes and make them just work. It makes it seem natural. And, listening to the commentary, Lamartine talked about making this seem like it could be real. The commercials really added to that, and I think that my only beef with this one was that the amount of time that the commercials took up. I think the movie's running time was around 83 minutes or so. The commercials took up around 25 minutes, and there was even some duplicate commercials shown. The first time I watched it, it worked perfectly. Subsequent watches wore on me just a little bit. However, there's no denying that 25 minutes of an 83-minute block of TV is totally reasonable for the authenticity. Same with the fact that there were repeats of commercials, so it makes total sense if that's what they're going for, right? And it's obvious with the amount of research that they did make and everything era correct, that this is presented the way that it makes sense why they did it the way they did. Now, don't think that the movie was ruined because of that on the second watch, because it wasn't. And this was my second watch. There was so much good stuff in this to make me love it, even after, watching the commercials the second time. The kitsch of the local television station, the oozing Halloween atmosphere, and the smart comedy was all great. Like I said, there were even some truly creepy moments that I really liked. I mentioned the Blair Witch Project earlier. Well, the marketing of this movie may have taken a page from the Blair Witch's marketing style. We know that for Blair Witch, there were all sorts of atypical ways of getting the word out and creating hype. I remember the website that presented everything as factual. And back then, the internet was pretty new, so we didn't have as like the level of skepticism that we do now. And so we read that, and you're like, ooh, okay, cool. I don't know if I can't remember if I thought it was real, but that website helped it seem real to me. Not having that kind of budget. In fact, the budget was reportedly so low for this WNUF special that I don't even believe the number I read on the internet. Like, nobody could have gotten paid for if that's really how much it cost. Anyhow, LaMartina said that for the first 3 months after its release, it was only available on VHS. Like, you could only buy it on VHS. However, before it was released, LaMartina uploaded it to Cinemageddon, some torrent sites, so that if somebody happened upon it, they'd be like, oh, what, is this real? What's going on here? At least for a little bit, and I think that's kind of what he was going for. But on top of that, they put this movie on some VHS tapes, slapped a white sticker on it, and wrote WNUF Halloween Special on that sticker. They went to VHS and some horror conventions, putting them in spots where people would find the tapes, but they would know nothing about them. They'd take it home, pop it in. I think that's awesome, right? But the problem is you never know if that worked on anyone. Like, I remember the time some asshole put a tape chock full of gay porn on the in the VCR, right? They gave the VCR to Goodwill. It took years to work. In fact, I had the VCR as a backup, so I had it at my house for 3 or 4 years before even I busted it out. But dang, finally I'm like, oh shoot, what's on this tape? Let's just say it worked, but at least the people who put it in there did not get the satisfaction. It would have been nice if Chris LaMartina had gotten the satisfaction, but kind of a cool whisper campaign idea. But like I said, I got the TerrorVision Blu-ray. It looks great for what it is. This is not it's offered up in HD, but it's not. I mean, this isn't a movie that I'm ever going to need on 4K. There's some pretty cool extras on it. As I mentioned, some above, like the comparison of the original VHS look to the third generation VHS look, some extra commercials, a WNUF Christmas special promo, and some other cool stuff. Actually, in 2022, a sequel was released called Out There Halloween Special, again about WNUF, and some characters were reprised, not to mention a bunch of callbacks for this one to the WNUF, and you see that? Yeah, so I also got that one too, and maybe we'll talk about that more in depth later. But no, this was a good one. It's very similar and pretty dang funny. I mean, currently on IMDb, it has a higher score than this Halloween, the WNUF Halloween Special. Instead of a supposed haunted house, the reporters are doing a story about a local farmstead that's known for its alien encounters. Super fun, similar in presentation. But anyway, I guess that's all I got for this one. Go check this one out. It's super fun, and you can even watch it with your family. And I mean, that is if you can get kids to sit and watch around anything that doesn't have HD and all sorts of lasers and all sorts of stuff like that. But for us old folks, it hits that, like I said, that romanticized 80s feel. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe, you guys. Please do it. Visit thecorpsecollective.com or corpsecollective.com for some other projects that we have going on, such as our play-along horror pub trivia and the Corpsecast podcast. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you guys later.